Customer Success Team office hours. So we changed up the format a little bit here, just so everybody's awareness. So every other week we're actually kind of doing formal webinars on topics. Last week we did what did we do last week? Oh, we did
Multi-AZ.
multi AZ with Z, who is here with me again today. This is Matt Vanveld, V Cloud Matt, here as per usual. So we do kind of a formal webinar. And then we alternate to a what we're calling the office hour. So this is more just of a discussion kind of with the customer success team. You can come in, feel free to post questions, tweet questions at us, even during the week. Anything you want us to talk about during this office hours, especially if you have maybe some follow-up questions from the last presentation, we could definitely go over that for you. Again, we're trying to keep this really light, really interactive as much as possible. So fire whatever questions you have at us, and we'll attempt to fill it out. So this is in the EMEA / North America time zone, whereas next week we're going to go to the APJ North America time zone as well. What would we be at 6 o'clock PST, and that'll be for the next 2 weeks to try to get more of a worldly availability for people to kind of join in and see all the cool stuff that we can do with VMC on AWS and answer all of those questions. So I'm here again, Matt Vandenbilt, V Cloud Matt. I have Z with me. Z, do you want to do a little brief introduction of yourself?
Oh no, I wasn't ready for this. Yeah, my name is Z House. I work with Matt. What is my Twitter? VM A to Z. Yeah, sorry.
Which has changed, just so everybody knows, or if you're
Which
watching
has changed.
recorded videos.
Yeah,
He
I
had
got
a
heckled for that. So
yes, he had a horrible one before. I can't even remember what was it again.
we're just gonna. I don't remember.
Underscore Z something or other underscore. We also have Michael Kolos just snuck in and he's muted, so I'm going to see if he's putting on the spot and if he's paying attention.
Yeah, how you guys doing?
I'm well.
Good to be back.
Yeah, so want to introduce yourself just briefly there, Michael?
Sure. I also am on the customer success team with Matt and Z and a few others who are not live with us right now. But I know I've done a few shows before and glad to be back and see what we can talk about today.
And we also have so for everybody awareness, so me, Z, and Michael or I guess Z, Michael, and I are on the same team. We're on the customer success VMware Cloud team. We're customer success architects. With us today too, we have Mariana, who I'm going to put on the spot, who is a member of our CSE team, which is kind of an engineering support team that falls into the same leadership as us, but is kind of dedicated towards supporting the VMC product. They're the guys on the other end of that chat box. So, Marianne, do you want to do a quick intro of yourself?
Hi, my name is Marian, and yeah, I'm cloud support engineering here, mainly dealing with the chat questions coming from the customers, and I am the bridge between the customer and all internal VMware entities, with customer architects, SREs, disaster recovery as service teams, and so on.
All right, thanks for that. Do you have a Twitter you want to put out there too, or?
I don't have a Twitter. I don't have a blog, but I'm working on it.
I don't know about you guys.
I have to. I have to do. I don't know. Most of the time, I prefer to fill documents, notes, pod, but after 20 years of experience, it's very hard to find them. So I think it's a good point to start with the blog or something like that.
Yeah. So one thing I think I kind of wanted to touch on this week, maybe I think I can see it on the portal here. So I don't know why, and Michael and Mary, maybe you can offer your viewpoints on this a little bit, but to me, a lot of the customers I see seem reticent to use this chat feature. There's some that use this a lot, but there's a lot that send me an email or our team an email, or a customer success manager, which is another counterpart to our team, an email asking about, how do I do this, or can I do that, or, just different questions like that, where really all you need to do is just open up this little chat box, and you get a smart guy like Marion on the end. I can see, hey, oh, he's right here. You can see a picture of Marion on the stream here. and he's available to ask questions as well as any other member of the team. And so, Michael, is your experience kind of the same with some of your customers? They don't seem to want to hit that, even though it's probably the easiest way to ask a simple question or
I,
figure out a problem you're having, and it's very, very real time.
yeah, I mean, I find most of the customers I work with who have tried it simply love it, and I think to me one of the biggest things is that those, like you were pointing out, those pictures are real people. Like they're the ones answering your call. This isn't not clip art from Getty Images that we found some good looking folks to stuck their pictures up. Like these are the actual people, and they're there. They've been working with the product for a long time. They know about it. They know the people who are working with it, people who are building it, developing it, and they're really just a click away from virtually any interface where you're able to use the product from itself. So I I mean the feedback I've been getting is that it's great. It's by far the preferred way of doing business with support, and I know that I've gotten a number of requests to as to when we're going to expand this service to other VMware products, other vSphere products, which I know that they actually are looking into how they can do that. It's a bit of a different setup because you're not using those products online, and there's a whole technical aspect to it. But definitely, um, yeah, I think it's a great service, and you get, you know, when you have that little question, you sometimes, sure, you want to search, and it's a good idea and helps you learn more. But when you can't figure it out and you need to get something done, you just click the button and get an expert to help you.
Yeah, and I think that maybe some of that um, apprehension is due to the fact that the usual chat experience you have on websites is usually pretty poor. In general, I would say whenever I kind of go to a support site, the last thing I want to do. But this is actually, our support engineers. And Marianne's on the line right here. You can actually see again his picture. If I were to type, he could reply to me right now. And these guys know what they're doing. It's 24/5 now, right? So during the week, so Monday to Friday, we're looking at expanding that out. But we have a team in Cork, Ireland, which is where Marion is right now. We have a team in Egypt now, I believe, as well, and one in Broomfield, Colorado, and another team in Bangalore, India. So we do have kind of a wrap around the world presence so that we can answer these questions at any time. And like I said, this is not like you're getting kind of an entry level support kind of guy that will tell you to reboot something, which you can't actually do in GMC consequently. But the real support engineers, and it's a lot better to ask these guys a question than to wait however long it takes me to kind of get around to my email because I'm kind of buried right now. But so I really, really highly recommend it. Can't talk any more positives about that chat feature, and that covers the. And correct me if I'm wrong, Marion, that basically everything you're seeing in this cloud services portal, these guys can help you with, or at least get you to an answer, or someone that can help you with that.
Yes, that's right. Currently, what you see there, people are online, and they can based on the availability, because even like that we are online, but sometimes we are overloaded. Maybe we are already with a customer on Zoom, and will not be available to answer the chat in the next second. So at that time we are just letting the customer knows that we are booked, and soon some of our colleagues will be available, will pick up the chat and continue the
Yeah, so
discussion.
I think it's about a 5 minute response SLA. I think on the chat or is what the aim is, right? Is to at least respond within 5 minutes. Is that kind of the
To pick up the chat, yeah, it's a short SLA. It's not so it's not so big. The what I wanted to say in the last time we started as the VMC service start flying, and the customer really interested in it. We are busy, yeah, with different question, and the most challenging part is when let's say we are four in the team in EMEA during the EMEA hours, and then there were situations when all four of us were already running a Zoom meeting with ongoing customers. So additional chats were not we were not able to take it, but we were just inform the customer. We just let the customer know that we are there, and soon we are available. We can pick up the chat and continue the discussion on.
Yeah, and along those lines, we are looking at expanding our teams, and have offered other regions to try to help with that, because it is a fantastic, and also want to lie out that this is for free. Well, not for free, I guess, but this is included in the service. So this is not an additional cost. This is not for mission critical support or anything like that. This is just included in the service. And the other thing I wanted to raise as well is that this is a question we sometimes get as well, is you don't have to use chat to open a service ticket. You can do it via traditional means. You can call in, email in, fill out the web form. So there's multiple ways of doing it. I just wanted to kind of put it out there that this is, a fantastic feature people love. It's something that is new to this service that VMware's offering, and it's a really great team of ours that's running it. So I kind of wanted to make sure that I called that out. So now we can move along a little bit here to kind of along the same kind of theme here. And this is something I wanted to point out, because we kind of launched this. So the theme of today's chat is trying to cover a lot of the stuff that we announced at VMworld. I know it's been a couple of weeks since then, but that kind of gives everybody a little bit of a chance to digest all of the stuff that was happening during VMworld, because there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff announced. And one of the things that kind of was announced that kind of slipped through a little bit, and I don't know how good a job we did promoting this, but we have relaunched our VMTM site for the VMware Cloud on AWS. So this is just another venue to go to, say you don't actually currently have a VMC contract. This is where you can come and ask questions. And again, it's going to be our team, the customer success team, which includes the CSEs and the CSAs that moderate this and are able to answer questions for you. It's just on the main VMTM page. Just click on the VMware Cloud and AWS, and you can go right into the discussions and ask anything here. It's a really valuable resource, and you can get points and stuff for answering questions. Michael, have you ever used VMTN?
Actually, I have not.
You have not? Okay, you don't have a rating. I believe I got the hot shot, which I think is the same as DJ here with the target. So,
right.
So there is some for correct answers you get a little bit of some points, and that helps you rate up, so you can kind of identify who answers questions the best, I suppose. But I did want to really mention this because we haven't seen a lot of traffic in it. We've seen a little bit of things pick up, but I think a lot of that is because people just don't know about it. And I just, again, want to reiterate that we have all these avenues for you to try to get information from us, and I really encourage everybody to leverage them as much as possible, so you know what you're getting into when you make that purchase, and how to use it effectively. And so, like I said, we'll hopefully see more in there. So along the VMworld stuff, so this was a tweet that just came out a few minutes ago from Cloud Connect, Paul, who is on our solution engineering team. I believe that's what that set acronym stands for, who looks after VMware Cloud. So he just put this out. This is originally posted on September 4th, but you can see it was actually reposted yesterday. So some of the new features that are coming, the top one here is we have announced Sydney. So Sydney is live, and you can provision some resources there. We were having a little bit of some capacity problems, if I remember correctly, Michael. We're trying to ramp up there as quickly as possible because we got a big influx. So I think that there was a temporary hold on that. I can't remember.
That may have been for another area. I haven't heard that for Sydney myself.
Okay. Regardless, so that region is available now, and I think we've ramped up the capacity. So now we are officially in the APJ region, and Sydney, Australia in general, just blows my mind about how advanced those guys are, especially in the VMware realm. I've been lucky enough to go to Sydney a couple times delivering live fire training, and the talent out there is just amazing, and these guys just embrace stuff and run with it. And maybe it's because they're on a big island, they want to reach out as much as possible. I don't know. That's for all my Aussie friends out there. But so they really embrace it. So the next targets we're looking at, and that's going to be Q4 this year, is Tokyo, Ireland, Northern California, and Ohio. I know we have a lot of customers looking forward to Ohio, specifically. Ireland is also big, and we have a lot of interest in Tokyo as well, and so that's why those kind of boiled up to the top. Then next year we're looking at Singapore, Mumbai, Central Canada. Where do you think Central Canada is, Michael? You're a Canadian, and like Winnipeg? I doubt it's Winnipeg.
No, there's actually only one region in Canada, and the original map that they used on stage at VMworld actually had the dot literally in the center of Canada, which is not correct. Central Canada is actually Montreal, is where the AWS region is, and it's the only AWS region in Canada.
I would
It's
not
kind of a
consider.
Canadian thing. They call Quebec and Ontario Central Canada versus the Maritimes West and then Eastern Canada. So even though it's not, if you put a ruler across the country and look for the center, that's where whoever was drawing the first map put that dot. But Central Canada is generally Quebec and Ontario, and in this case,
No, see, that seems to be a very Eastern Canadian way of thinking, that the center of Canada is in Ontario.
Well, I think technically the center of Canada, and actually the center of the universe, is Toronto.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. I've heard that. Calgarians love that, by the way.
Yeah, well, I mean, the people in Toronto probably don't really care.
So for those who don't really know the Canadian geography, so Montreal is like what, northeast of New York?
It's almost straight north.
Is it straight
actually.
North? Okay. So we, most would not consider that central in any way, shape, or form. So that's the kind of why I, want to bring it up. Bear noting is it's actually, I would consider it East Coast.
Yeah, it's a little. I don't know. I guess it's just how they originally divided up Canada, and probably a bit of historical reasoning. And I do know that the latest versions of that map with all our regions and planning on it have been updated to show the correct spot. But if you look at AWS's regions, you'll see that they've got it in Montreal. So yeah, there's no region in Winnipeg yet, but we hope, right? I mean, we want to
Well, there's got to be some reason to go to Winnipeg, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
I doubt anybody from Winnipeg's watching the stream. If not, I'll buy you a beer for slamming your lovely city. So then after that, we're going to expand a lot more into APJ. The Singapore is a popular ask. Mumbai in India, Paris, another region in EMEA, because we understand that the EMEA laws and regulations, the more presence we have in different countries there, the better it is for people for their data sovereignty. Then Sao Paulo is actually an interesting one down in Brazil. That's going to be our first South America launch, and then is along with a whole bunch more APJ in Hong Kong, another one in Japan, and in Korea. And then the big one that a lot of people are looking forward to is Gov Cloud, which is really something that is, I would probably say, is number one priority maybe on our development side of the house. That's where we're dedicating a lot of our resources, is to get the Gov Cloud and the FedRAMP certification to offer that service, because we have a lot of customers that are very interested in that, and so we're pushing that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that one move up a little bit, but I think because of all the compliancy stuff is probably why it's at H2. It takes a long time to get through all of those steps. And then the future is Beijing and China, because China has a lot more, I don't know if regulation is the right word, but laws governing how their services can be consumed and accessed. So that brings a whole different ball of wax to the game that we'll have to cut around, and we'll figure it out. The next one is we're offering quite a few deals now. The biggest one that's in here, in my opinion, is we kind of want to mention, we announced a 3-host cluster. So now the smallest size of a production cluster you can have is a 3-node. And we're actually having a deal right now where you can get 3 of those nodes for the price of 2. So if you're interested in trying out the service, that's now is a really good time to get in with a production SDDC that is running, that you can continue to use upon a successful use case or pilot, and get a lot of value out of it and get a good deal on it right now. We are also adding the 30-day time bound. So we had some customers, and so somebody put on Reddit a little while ago that they kind of kept getting billed, um, which is something in our it's a little bit of both sides there. But what what occurs is if you don't delete your SDDC, you just kind of ignore it and go, okay, I used up my month. We'll continue to bill you because from us you're still continuing to use the SDDC. So now we actually have kind of a 30-day. This is it. You use it, and you won't see a bill. And we fixed the back end for people that turn things off or tried to disable things but didn't delete the SDDC to try to stop those billing errors from happening again. And we have done that. But so we have a couple of different options now. I've seen a few customers taking advantage of this. So I had one customer that wanted to use this 3-for-2 deal for a site recovery target, which I think is a great use for it if you have kind of a smaller environment that you want to do it, which actually kind of goes along with another announcement, and I actually don't know if it's on here.
Matt, I just wanted
Yeah.
to come here with this question, and thank you that you highlighted this topic. We have already customer asking when this will be possible. It's somewhere our management or on the taking in consideration some future option to have customers shutting down their service. Of course, they are expecting to be some cost for keeping the hardware and all those settings. But it is something that VMware is taking in consideration to have this option and shut down the SDDC, preserve all the work that was done there, and for a specific period of time, of course, pay less amount of money per hour, and then when the customer is ready to continue the work, just power on the environment and try to complete his
Yeah,
work.
I've heard that as well. Now, I mean, on our side it's a little bit difficult because we pay for the hosts
Yeah,
ourselves.
I know, I know. Exactly. I will not say that everybody or the customer is expecting to have this for free. But recently, I have a chat with a customer, and he uh, asked this question. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
I,
it's a valid thing, and I can see why people would want to do that. And I can see I can see ways technically we can make it work. But I would say that that's probably pretty far down our roadmap at the current time.
yeah. Of course, this should be also synchronized with Amazon infrastructure as well, and their existing management tools.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. So another thing I wanted to mention here as well, and like I said, it's not on this page for some reason. So we did announce EBS backed storage hosts. And so that's all right. EBS backed hosts. Um, so, Michael, do you want to maybe go through a little bit of what that offering brings to the table? And some of
Sure.
it?
There's actually there are a couple of pieces to the offering. The first of which is that the default host, or the only host that we've had available with the VMware Cloud on AWS so far, has been what's called the i3 Metal type, and these are pretty powerful hosts. They've got 512 gigs of RAM, two 18 physical core CPUs, and they also come with about 10 terabytes of NVMe SSD flash storage. So when we're looking, that's a great setup. I mean, we chose it because it was sort of a good average uh, configuration for most needs. Doesn't meet all needs though, and so this is where this whole EBS-backed storage comes in. Is we found a lot of customers actually need more storage than they do CPU and memory, and so as a result, they have to add hosts that have for the storage that don't necessarily provide good value because they're not really using the CPU and memory on them. So enter EBS. Everybody who's used Amazon knows that you can get hosts, and in most cases, people use EBS volumes to boot up their host. And essentially, what it is EC2 instances are available with or without local storage. So while we've chosen an initial offering of the i3 hosts that have the local storage, when we were going to be offering EBS back storage, it doesn't really make sense to be having local storage on the host as well, because now you're paying for local storage and then you're going to connect EBS back storage. So why pay for both? So instead, we're looking at a new instance type as well. A new instance type is going to be based off an R5 instance, and it doesn't have any local host, but it does have even more memory. It's got 768 gigs of RAM. I forget how many CPU cores it has, but I think it's also a little beefier than the i3. But instead of local disks, we're going to be using EBS back disks. Now, what's really interesting is that it's not actually EBS in the same way that AWS uses it. The underlying infrastructure is AWS's EBS, but we don't just present it as an EBS volume. We're still going to be treating it with vSAN on top of it, which gives you a huge bunch of advantages over regular EBS. You can group it together and get additional performance. You can take advantage of all the vSAN capabilities and features, but you also get the benefits of having EBS underlying. And what that means is that you've got your storage separate from your instances. So if ever there's a problem with your instance, the hardware blows up, well, you still have your disk because the disk is stored separately at a higher level of availability, as opposed to with the i3 when it's local disks. And anyone who's used EC2 knows that Amazon is very clear that you can't use your local instance store for anything that you're going to retain, because as soon as you terminate that instance, that local data is gone. And so EBS, however, doesn't suffer from that same risk. You control your EBS volume separately, and we're able to take advantage of that. And so what we're doing is offering a solution that you are going to be able to choose when you deploy a new cluster, whether you're going to use the i3 instance with the local storage, which is what we've been offering up till now, or deploy a cluster based on the R5 hosts that have EBS back storage. And then when you choose EBS storage, you'll be able to select the capacity per host. So we're giving you a range. If you don't need a whole lot, you could also save. So for instance, a customer who only has a need for processing in memory, where you're doing some sort of data processing of data that's in S3 or a remote store that you're accessing online, now you can save that way as well. You don't need to buy hosts that have lots of storage on them because you're not using that. And instead, you can get EBS back instances and only put 5 terabytes per host, for example.
Well, so I think the sizing is what currently it's 15 is the smallest, I think, and then 35 is the max.
I thought it was from 5 to 35, but you may be right. I know it's in 5 terabyte increments per host.
Yeah, and the current max I know for sure is 35, and we're looking at increasing that. And currently that size is set. So if you pick 35 out the gate, every time you added a host, it would be another 35, and there would be no way to change that. We're looking at adding the functionality to be able to add more storage, to start at a 15 and then move up to a 20 kind of thing. But that's kind of on the roadmap right now. It's you pick 15, that's going to be 15 for every host that you add, and you can't size it up until you get a new cluster.
Right, and that's a great point. So we are looking at a lot of new features for this, but initially that's going to be one of the limitations. It's going to be rolled out with that fixed size per cluster or per host in the cluster. And that's another consideration, is that this is a per cluster solution. So when you choose to deploy a cluster, you have to choose your host type for that cluster and the storage configuration. You can't change that after. And in addition, right now in our initial rollout, we're going to be limiting the first. We're not offering the choice of storage on your first cluster, because your first cluster is also running your management components, and we want to make sure that that's running something that we're familiar with, the performance characteristics. And so your first cluster is always going to be based on the i3 with local storage. And now that, as Matt mentioned earlier, we can go down to 3 hosts. So your first cluster could be as small as 3 hosts. And then you could deploy a second cluster, and that second cluster can be whatever type of host and storage you choose. So you can deploy a second cluster based on the local i3 and VME storage, or you can deploy it based on the R5 with EBS up to 35 terabytes per host. And then you can grow that cluster to basically give you quite a significant boost in capacity. It gives you almost 3.5 times the availability in terms of storage capacity that you had in i3.
So, and along those lines, the question that always comes up when we mention that is, will we offer just R5s? And the answer is yes. At some point in the future, it's on the roadmap that you don't need that i3 first kind of quote unquote management cluster. So we are making strides to make it that you could just go R5 because we do realize that as Michael mentioned that storage capacity seems to be the major limiter or unit of measure for scaling out hosts. So we're really trying to make it as accessible and make the cost and the ROI and the TCO as optimized as possible to use it. And I think that this EBS really opens up that SR as a service as well, even fuller. Not that you couldn't do it before, but now you can really have a large storage capacity host that you can actually back up a significant amount more machines. And we are looking at the future as well. Again, everything we say about roadmaps and stuff is subject to change. I should actually have a disclaimer. That's what we should start with. Is I should have a disclaimer. Is everything we talk about here may or may not happen, or will happen. Just when is the question. And then in the future, we're looking at offering very small units of compute nodes with larger amounts of storage as a DR target. So because the beauty of the VMware Cloud offering is you can scale up hosts extremely quickly. So you can start with right now, say 3 hosts with a lot of storage behind it, and in the event of a DR event, you can scale that up to 32 in an actual cluster, and then you can actually add more clusters if you need. But you could do that extremely quickly. That's about 10 minutes a host, give or take.
Yeah, and in fact, Matt, I'll even one up you on that. You can have it happen automatically because you just made me think of another feature that we've just rolled out with our latest update, and that's something called EDRS or Elastic DRS. And what that does is you can enable it on your SDDC cluster, and it will proactively monitor your consumption of resources, so CPU, memory, and storage. And if any of those surpass a threshold, it can automatically provision a new host. And therefore, you don't even have to be worrying about are you out of capacity? What if your workloads are suddenly ramping up and they need more performance or more memory? Well, you just turn this on and it'll automatically scale up, and then you can have it automatically scale down if that need goes down. So if you have a process that, for instance, once a week does some major batch reporting on the weekend, and it would really benefit you to have some extra swing storage space from it and some extra CPU performance, you can enable this, and you can give it some parameters, like you don't want it to exceed a certain number of hosts and don't go below a minimum number of hosts, similar to how AWS can scale up your environment behind a load balancer. We can do the same thing, and when you start running that report, it will start consuming resources. The monitoring will detect that, and depending on the tuning options that you've set, you can go and add hosts. And as I said, it takes about 10-15 minutes to add a host, and then you can get the extra capacity automatically.
And just to one up Michael, because that's the way I want to do this. I'm showing on the screen here. I don't know if Michael's watching the stream as well, but it's right there. It's a really easy click button to either enable or disable this, and yeah, you can pick up the minimum cluster size and maximum cluster size, and yeah, no, I think that's an extremely valid point that you can do this without even thinking about it. You could use the site recovery service, hit the failover, and automatically everything just comes up for you, including the sizing to ensure your resources your services get the resources that they require. I think that's a great point. So moving along, we did bundle Cost Insight with VMware Cloud on AWS. So this is a really cool service cost insight that will help you do a fairly deep analysis on the cost of what it would take to run your services in VMware Cloud. Definitely something that we should look into before they kind of jump onto it, so they know what they're getting into. And like I said, we bundled it now. There have been some advances to Hybrid Cloud Extension, HCX, which is actually kind of a weird acronym from Hybrid Cloud Extension. But so that's offered at no cost to the VMware Cloud consumers. And we've now added VMware Cloud Motion, they call it, with vSphere. So did you want to talk about a little bit about what that means, Michael? I mean, that's basically a vSphere replication assisted vMotion.
Sure, and first I'll address the most important issue that you raised, and that's the names. So we've been having quite a few discussions around the naming, HCX, HCE, how do you call it? And HCX has kind of been a name that's been around for a while. They've used it internally to call it Hybrid Cloud Extension, and I guess if you write it down, it looks like you've missed your shift key a little bit and had a bit of a delayed reaction because you got that X. But I think they just do that because X sounds cooler than E. And HCE also, to me, sounds like it's a HP product nowadays. So the solution overall is called HCX, and then we've also got a bit of a marketing question around the naming for the solution that you called Cloud Motion. We're also calling it by the more descriptive name of Replication Assisted vMotion, and that I think says it all. Is when everybody's familiar with vMotion, you can take a running VM and move it onto another physical piece of hardware, another host, live without any interruption to the processing or network connectivity on that host. This is a great tool, but normally it relies on really high bandwidth, like local network. This is the kind of thing that people throw multiple 10 gig links at to aggregate so they can get VMs moving faster, because when you have a small VM that's not too busy, doesn't have a lot of memory, it doesn't take too long. But when you start getting bigger VMs with 64 gigs of RAM, you got to move those 64 gigs of RAM worth of data in addition to whatever active changes are going on. And of course, RAM can change fairly quickly. And when you get to the moving to the cloud, you're now not dealing with shared storage. So in addition to moving the memory and CPU state, you actually have to move the underlying storage as well. And of course, nobody wants to be too careful with how much storage they consume, and we tend to have a lot of bloat. So you end up with VMs that typically have 60 plus gigs of storage. Obviously, you can go from there. So what happens is when you're doing vMotion, you got to click go, and then all that data starts moving, and you got to wait for it to finish moving. And then just the last few seconds, the VM is cut over, and the actual processing switches to the new host. Well, what we thought is that when we're moving to the cloud, that doesn't really work that well, because you don't want to move one VM at a time. You need to move a whole bunch of them at a time. And so what they've done is they've come up with a solution where they can pre-replicate the data using our existing vSphere replication engine on the back end, so that all the storage is already moved across. So you start a couple of days or weeks ahead of time, depending on what you're doing and what your network connectivity is like. And all that data from the disks is replicated across to your destination site typically in your SDDC. And it sits on disk, and every 15 minutes or so, it does a delta sync to get it up to date and maintains that until you're ready to move it. And then when you're ready to move it, this is what the amazing piece is it does a vMotion just on that last little bit. So you've got 99% of your data sitting there all ready to go. All it has to do now is transfer your memory state and your CPU state, and then do that last data sync up. And it's able to do that through a live vMotion process, and it only takes a fraction of the time that it would take to move the whole data set, because the data is already there. And this allows you to migrate larger numbers of VMs across to the cloud without any outage. It's really fantastic. It's another kind of game changer situation that we have. We've seen quite a few of them in terms of how to migrate workloads into the cloud with HCX, and this is another one that's really going to make it easier to get your workloads into the cloud.
Yeah, and along those lines, I have to thank you, Michael. That was a brilliant explanation of it. So it's the current cap is 1,000 VMs, and that's a limit on our vSphere replication appliances. Actually, that we'll be looking at expanding as well, and hopefully we have customers that require more than 1,000 VMs live. But I think 1,000 is good enough for now. And this is just in the HCX interface. This is not like you need to do anything special or, command line and everything. Well, I think you probably do this with an API. Well, I won't get into that. But you can actually just, in the interface, is the drop down options. You can live emotion, schedule a bulk migration, or use the vSphere, the cloud motion. I can't remember what we call it in the actual HCX interface. I think it's replication assisted vMotion, I think is what it's called in there.
Yeah, that's the name that the HCX team is believes in, and the marketing team may like cloud motion, but replication assisted vMotion really tells you what it is and shows you that it's actually vMotion.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a really cool thing that I think kind of slipped by the radar for a few people, because like I said, we had so many announcements. We also have released a few more solution enablement toolkits. This is something from our a partner group of ours, Professional Services Engineering, that we work with quite closely, that develops IP for our PSO and for partners to consume to be able to deliver services. And I know that there's, I'm not sure if we mentioned them here, but there's, so there's a hybrid cloud readiness assessment, so they can actually leverage us to kind of go through and see how ready you are to move to the cloud. We can also assist you to plan all of your migrations, and also work with you about utilizing other services within the portfolio, and kind of be an extra set of hands and eyes to help you get into the solution. Now, a lot of our solutions are designed for you to just consume. You don't need to use VMware services or a partner service to consume these, but they are all there and definitely available for people that need a little bit of help. I know everybody's busy out there, so it's kind of, these kind of tasks, especially the migrations, can be very timely and require a lot of thought that goes into it. And we prefer everybody to kind of do that thought and use as many tools and leverage us or our PSO or your partner to help you with those migration plans, because that to me is the most critical part of this, is to really do a think of that and not just kind of grab everything and throw it up there and kind of hope it works, which we haven't seen a lot of customers do, thankfully. A lot of them have done a very good job, but there's a lot of different ways of thinking about how to do your migrations, whether that be certain applications first or certain network segments first, or how you kind of want to approach that thinking. And definitely there's a large amount of support that can help you with those kinds of conversations. We also are offering new webinars and workshops through our Partner Acceleration Program. This is something I help work on with the education team as well. So there's lots of training coming up for anybody that really wants to do it, and including this webinar series that we run weekly. Again, I'll just keep putting it out there that everybody can always join and ask questions, and we're going through a lot of topics because we want to get as much information out there as possible. That kind of leads me into the next point, is that so now you get free VMware on AWS credits with vSphere Platinum, which is a new licensing version that we have that includes a certain amount of credits, and I think it says here 10K. It also depends a lot on, there's also no ELA bonus you can get if you sign an ELA that includes VMware on AWS credits. And I would really highly recommend people that get this service to actually, hopefully watch some of our webinars, watch some of these other webinars, chat with us or chat with your local sales teams about how to get the best use out of it. What I don't want to see is customers kind of going, oh, I have that. So they fire it up and kind of click a few buttons and play with it and go, okay, that's kind of cool. And then never use it again. I prefer everybody kind of do a little bit more of a POC pilot type methodology when they're looking at these credits and know that they have these credits. We will probably be hassling you if you're not trying it out. Just as a pre-warning, because we definitely want people to try the platform to see, how good it is and how easy it is to run your virtual machines in the public cloud. As we know that's a lot of initiatives out there coming in, from your CIOs, CTOs, about getting into the public cloud. And in my opinion, obviously, and maybe a little bit biased, but VMware Cloud is the absolute easiest way to get that presence into the public cloud, because you're probably running vSphere on premises, and if it runs on premises, it'll run on VMware Cloud. That's a pretty simple way of looking at it.
One thing I want to add, Matt, just to not to potentially discourage anybody from doing what you described as opening it up, clicking it, checking it out, is that's a great thing to do, but you don't need to use your own credits to try a lot of that, because we do have a HandsOn Lab where you're able to try out the interface and deploy a simulated cluster of VMware Cloud on AWS to VMware's HandsOn Labs, and see what it looks like, and just give it a shot, see what the interface looks like, and not spend any money doing so, so that when you do get to your own setup, you're not burning any money or credits trying to get the basic stuff under your fingers. So there's definitely it's a good thing to do, but you can do it ahead of time. And I encourage you to, if you haven't already, to try out the HandsOn Lab. The HandsOn Lab, it doesn't actually deploy a physical host underneath, so you don't get the full capability. It's not running the underlying infrastructure, simply because that starts costing a lot of money to use. So instead, the next level up is once you're familiar with the actual interface, and if you want to test out API calls to it, you can do that. If you actually want to deploy something physical and be able to connect to your vCenter and an ESX host and actually try running some workloads, we provide you the ability to do a trial one node pilot environment that you can actually purchase with your credit card. So, a good time they always say the best time to get approval for spends is Friday afternoon. Go hit up your boss and get the credit card number and some approval, and it doesn't cost you a lot, because it only costs you for what you use. But you can go and spin up a single node, literally the same software stack that you get in production. Spin it up, and you have a 30-day trial, and it charges you by the hour on your credit card. So if you shut it down after 2 days, you only pay for those 2 days, but you can actually do full functional run workloads on it. The only thing we say is it's not production ready, because we do shut it down after 30 days, simply because we don't upgrade them. It's a trial. However, if you spent the time setting it up and you're like, yeah, this is definitely for me, you get your boss the next Friday afternoon, and he's still in a good mood, and you get approval to go ahead with it, you can actually scale it up to a full 3 node, which is now the minimum, and then it becomes production ready, and you don't lose your data. It imports everything in, and there you go. You have your SDDC ready to go and start running production workloads on it just like that. So keep in mind, 2 Friday afternoons, convincing your boss for some trial funds, and then you can change your whole environment.
No, that's a brilliant point. We did release a new HandsOn Lab at VMworld -2, kind of the first one, and I think it was number 3 for a while for most consumed labs. I think maybe it settled out to number 5, but it was definitely in the top 5 for labs used at VMworld, which is actually really cool. And I agree with Michael's point 100%. Is if you just want to kick the tires and see what the thing looks like, there's absolutely no better way of doing that. And then, kind of to reiterate the point, by the time you actually go to start using those credits that you have become an ELA or from vSphere Platinum, then you have a really good plan in place, and hopefully have some structure around some success criteria for what it means that this was a successful pilot, and you can actually now consume the services, and our teams are available to assist with that part as well. Again, going back to that chat feature, if you're trying to use your cloud credits and you run into kind of issue, you can just open the chat, and we can help you through all kinds of scenarios to try to get you up and running and consuming the service. Now, I guess kind of in the last 10 minutes here, it might be worth bearing out. So we did announce something called RDS on vSphere. Now, currently, so RDS is a relational database service that Amazon offers in their cloud service, but now they're able to port that to run on vSphere, and currently it's running on vSphere on premises, which I think is kind of a really cool thing, as it gives you that AWS RDS service without having to run it in the cloud. You can actually run it on premises, which opens up a whole new world of possibilities for getting off of more traditional platforms to this relational database service. There have been some asks to do this on VMware Cloud on AWS, and it's something we're looking at. I kind of struggle with this a little bit, and Michael and Marion, if you want to pipe in. I mean, if you're kind of already running it in the cloud, it doesn't make a lot of I can see why some people might want to run that on vSphere. Maybe there's some cost benefit to doing it that way versus RDS. But right now, if you are in VMware Cloud on AWS running application workloads, you can consume the RDS directly over our ENI connections. So you kind of have that add right now. And now you can extend that down to your on-premises. So we're actually adding a little bit more to that hybrid cloud story. What are your guys' kind of thoughts along those lines?
Well, I mean, I agree with you. It's something that we've had with VMware Cloud on AWS because of that close connection where you're actually running in AWS and you have that link. You have the best of both worlds, where you're having somebody else manage your infrastructure and your storage and everything for you. But I guess that this is intended for people who aren't in the cloud yet, or they have some, essentially there's some customers who have contractual obligations where they're not able to move their data into the cloud. They have to meet certain requirements. So there's always some people who have some restrictions. And I think that this might be a viable option for them to be able to benefit from the advantages of having AWS manage certain components of their database infrastructure, which can be quite complex, and not everybody is able to have a full-time DBA team on staff. This can really help you with that, I think. So there are definitely some people that will be able to benefit from this. I do agree with you, though, if you can run it in the cloud, it's usually best, because you don't have to deal with a lot of the other components too. So if you're willing to have somebody else manage your database for you, why not have them manage the infrastructure for you as well? So if you don't have specific requirements that require you to keep it on-prem, you can benefit from having someone else deal with your upgrades and make sure that you're always up to date, because that's one of the biggest challenges is keeping your environment up to date on-prem. And in the cloud, that's handled for you.
I think there will facilitate also a different kind of application that will require a database. And as Michael said, having the database close to the application on the same Amazon on the same zone, it will be much easier for admins, especially the application administrators.
Yeah, no, I think those are all very, very good, valid points. So, a couple other quick ones we can mention here for analysis. So, we have, I guess, enabled the ability to disable cores on your vSphere hosts within VMware Cloud to assist in those licensing features, and we've also allowed it host affinity. For those applications. Now, again, that is kind of a soft isolation, logical isolation, as some people put it. We're looking at better ways of helping people with those licensing constraints, especially for Oracle workloads is kind of the key one. And I think there's a webinar coming up on that today or sometime soon that you can check out about how to run Oracle on VMware Cloud. But we are working very hard on trying to bring the cost more in line, so you're not paying a lot for those Oracle licenses. We also did announce officially the advanced NSX is what they call it here. It's still in early access, so when you go into your portal, you won't have access to do this yourself. It's something that you need to work with our teams to enable you. The feature parity is coming, targeting middle of October, I think, to have it work with features like site recovery as a service and with HCX. So that's still kind of, like I said, very early access. But that brings a lot of features to the table for this is using our NSXT backend versus NSXV, which allows you to use all private VIFs as opposed to having some public VIFs if you're using Direct Connect, as well as the distributed firewall. Which is something that's great. Service insertion is still coming down the road. That's a question that comes up a lot as well. Is when can you kind of put in a virtual Palo Alto or Checkpoint or whatever you have, your on-premises kind of thing. That's still coming, probably looking later this year. But Michael, do you want me to touch a little bit quickly about kind of some of the NSXT landscape as it is right now?
Sure. So NSXT is our future direction here at VMware for our networking platform, which a lot of people may be familiar with the NSXV version running on-prem, and that's the same version that uh, our VMware Cloud on AWS has been based on. But we're moving towards having a NSXT based solution. In terms of what is different, well, NSXT is essentially a completely different solution from NSXV. It performs the same functions, and there's a network virtualization and security at the network level, has distributed firewall, all kinds of load balancer and other solutions on-prem. Um, but in practice, when you're running VMware Cloud on AWS, you don't really see much of a difference whether you're running NSXV or NSXT. The main difference is that it's going to give you additional network capabilities that are not exposed in VMware Cloud on AWS when it's running on NSXV. So with NSXV, we don't have a distributed firewall enabled under VMware Cloud on AWS. We don't have any of the advanced features. It's simply uh, doing its job, being transparent, and virtualizing the network underneath, which you don't see. When you get to an NSXT-based solution, which we're going to start rolling out publicly in the near future, then we start exposing some of these features like distributed firewall. So you can now create microsegmentation rules in your SDDC in the cloud, which is phenomenal. We're able to support some more advanced VPN technologies. So with NSXV, we were limited to policy-based IPsec VPNs, which is what most people use if you're using a Cisco ASA, for example. But the ability to do a route-based VPN lets you run a dynamic routing protocol, typically BGP, over a VPN, IPsec VPN tunnel, which is way easier to just add and change routes. It gives you the ability to have some redundancy because you can have dynamic routes handle a failover across multiple tunnels or backend interfaces. So for most enterprises who have dynamic routing protocol in their core network already, it becomes a lot easier to integrate with a route-based VPN. So that'll help a lot of people get connected more easily. And of course, we've got a number of other features that will be coming down the pipeline with the service insertion and load balancing in the future. All these things will eventually get exposed in VMware Cloud on AWS. But the biggest ones that will you'll see right up front are the distributed firewall and the different possibilities for VPNs. It also changes the network connectivity inside the SDDC. It The way the structure works in NSXT, it means that we're going to have an automatic connection between the compute and the management sides of your SDDC, which if you've ever tried to do something that accesses your vCenter from within your SDDC, you'll find that in an NSXV environment that didn't work, and you had to go and create the connection by building an IPsec VPN. With NSXT, that connectivity is native. It also gives you some better performance, the VPN performance. The Edge and NSXT uses DPDK and can get you, some pretty good performance. Not that it was bad in NSXV, but you get that extra boost in NSXT. So a lot of enhancements and definitely our future direction. So new features will be coming to NSXT when NSXV is sort of, we're not going to be building new features out in general for it in VMware Cloud on AWS.
Yeah, thanks. That was a fantastic recap of the services. And like Michael said, it's we are definitely working on adding all of the features that the NSXT can bring to bear, and we're kind of doing that over time. We're probably looking at end of the year until NSXT is kind of the quote-unquote default platform for VMware Cloud. But that's always, again, subject to change. Just in the last minute or two here, we have also announced officially the services for VMware Cloud Automation Services. So for those in the on-prem world, this is essentially vRealize Automation as a SaaS offering, which is kind of a cool thing to think about. So you can use it to deploy to multiple clouds, with VMware Cloud being one. You can use it to deploy to Azure, to AWS itself. And it's actually broken into three different products. It's a Cloud Assembly, Service Broker, and Code Stream. So you can kind of get more granular on the actual services that you want to consume. And it's something that definitely, if you're interested in, that's something we could do. We have planned, I believe, on our roadmap for our webinars to go over these services in particular and kind of show off a lot of the cool stuff that they're doing. So I guess we'll leave it the last minute. If there's any kind of closing comments that Marion you want to make, or I think Z just popped in. If there's anything there, I don't see a lot of questions in the chat. Again, for anybody that's watching, feel free to put questions in the chat. Tweet at me at vCloudMatt. Like I said, anytime during the week, if you just want to tweet at me and have a suggestion for a future webinar. I have this up on my blog page as well, vcloudmatt.com, where you can make some comments to that page as well about suggested topics and what you would like to see going forward. Again, we want to keep this as interactive as possible, and as kind of light and less marketing as possible. I know this one's a little bit more on the marketing side, but hopefully we give you a little bit more context behind the new features and how they're actually being implemented and such that you have a very good understanding of how it's used. So, floor is open if anybody wants to make any more comments.
No more comments from my side, Matt. Thank you very much for all the valuable information here.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah. So again, so next week we're going to be moving to the APJ timeframe. So that will be at 6 p.m. PST. You'll have to kind of do your own calculations for how that works in your parts of the world. And we will be covering, I believe we're going to be going over the HLM gateway, if I'm correct on that. So tune in next week, and then a week after that one, so 2 weeks from now, we'll be doing another office hours like we are doing right now, so we can discuss a lot of things. And like I said, just hit any of us up for topics or questions that you want covered, and I would like to thank everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Thanks very much.